Welcome to the rain. So we just had an opportunity to catch up quickly, and Minister, I know you want to certainly talk about many of the things that Alberta is doing, but talk about it from sort of the optimistic and positive way. So why don't you just kick us off and talk a little bit about what does you're definitely seen as a leader in the implementation of and use of AI within government. What does that practically look like within government, and maybe provide us a few examples if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Minister Balzer. Nice to see you. Looking forward to chatting later today. Yeah, really excited to be here just to talk a little bit about some of the success we've had in Alberta in adopting AI in the public service. And I thought one of the best ways to do that is just to tell a couple stories of real-world examples, and then that'll probably kick off a great conversation on how did that come to pass. So, recently we launched the Alberta AI Academy, and my Deputy Minister, Janet Alford, will talk a bit more about that later today, with the vision of trying to equip every public servant in Alberta with AI proficiency. You don't have to be a computer scientist to use AI. It doesn't matter who you are, you can use AI, and we want to help folks to understand how to use those tools responsibly. And so we had a cohort of folks who went through our level 2 training, and then one of the gentlemen, his name's Harish. He went back to his day job after completing the training, and he was looking at one of the tasks he had on his to-do list. So Harish is a business analyst. He specializes in contracts. He specializes in our ERP system, and he was looking at his task list, and one of the tasks was he had 1,500 contracts that were in old, PDF format, not machine readable, not useful. For querying organization-wide. He needed to port those into the ERP system. And that was going to take him 15 months of full-time work to get that done. And, he's the specialist. He's the expert. He's the one who has the skills to do that. And he looked at that and he said, you know what? I think there's a better way. He had learned how to build AI agentic platforms. He had learned how to build an AI harness. He had learned how to do everything the right way, how to do it in alignment with our privacy controls, with our data governance controls. And so he spent a little bit of time and he built his own tool. And then when he turned it on, it did the 15 months of work in 2 minutes, and it cost $1.12 in compute. Now, our deputy minister didn't go to Harris and say, you need to go use AI to do this. I didn't go to him and say, you need to use AI to do this. Nobody micromanaged Harris and said, you need to use AI to do this. He was inspired by the tools and the training and the techniques that he learned in our AI Academy. He went back to his day job and said, I can do this better. And he just did it. And, a lot of folks have talked about jobs and whatnot. Do you think that Harris's job is in jeopardy because he did this?
I suspect not after the...
Absolutely not. He's more valuable to us than ever. And do you think he's having fun? He's having way more fun now than he's ever had before because we gave him the tools, the training, and the room to run. So that's just one example of how we've unlocked some savings. And I'll give you one more real quick. The Department of Infrastructure came to us and said, we currently track all of Alberta's real property with Excel spreadsheets. Tens of billions of dollars of property, tens of thousands of locations. And they were desperate for a new solution. So a couple of years ago, we worked with them on an RFP, and we went to market, and the best bid was one of the household name consulting firms, and it was $54 million over 3 years. Well, we didn't have $54 million, and we didn't have 3 years. And what I also know is that likely would have turned into $100 million over 6 years. So I hear some chuckles in the room. You know what I'm talking about.
Truth.
And so we did something quite unpopular. We killed the RFP. And we said, there's a better way. So we developed some computer vision tools to monitor the screens, the monitors of our staff to understand how they're using Excel. Every cell, every worksheet, every tab, every formula. Then we developed a chatbot to interview them and say, how are you using your tools today? What's working, what's not? What are the pain points, and what does an ideal future state look like? And then we fed all of that into a tool that then built the product roadmap, and then we started getting to work coding it in-house. Because again, we didn't have $54 million to hire someone, so we had to do it in-house. And so now, 10 months after we started that process, we've spent $800,000 643 staff are using a tool that today is better than what they were using before. And 8 months from now, we will have added every single feature they've asked for, and it will have cost a total of $2.5 million. That's a $52 million savings for the taxpayers, and it got them something right now that they were going to have to wait 3 to 6 years for. I'm here to tell you, folks, that if we can do it, you can do it too. And so, we've talked a lot about, let's just get to building. Let's not just talk about it. Let's not just analyze it. Let's not overanalyze, not strategize. Let's just get to work and start building. That's what we've been focused on in Alberta, and we're having some great results.
Those are two amazing examples. One being sort of very grassroots, empowering creating the conditions for a staff member, for a member of your team to do something. And then the other, obviously, quite big. And I think, I'm just curious about some of the conversation today has been about creating the conditions, and I know full well that that had to be at least part of why some of this was possible. I'm just curious about what has had to change around processes or assumptions within government to allow for some of those monumental things that you are doing.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. I mean, first of all, they needed to know that there was direction from the top. Our Premier, Danielle Smith, has been very forward-thinking and proactive in giving me a lot of room to run and a mandate to say we want to be one of the most innovative public services in the world. We want to be the most AI provision, jurisdiction, and we really just want to deliver better results for Albertans. We want to do more with less. It's not about cutting. I saw I see that we're on the same page where we've got a bit of a budget deficit we got to navigate, right? It's a challenging time. Every jurisdiction in Canada has got a challenging time. But what our goal is to say is instead of just cutting services to balance the books, let's do more with less. And the only way to do that is with technology. The only way to do that is with AI. And so the Premier's given me a lot of room to run with that. And then we've assembled a team of very technologically competent leadership. You're going to hear from my Deputy Minister later today, and he's leading the charge there. We've designed the Alberta AI usage policy, which talks about human-in-the-loop principles. It talks about privacy by design principles, data governance, all the things that have been referred to earlier this morning as cautions. If you get them wrong, then you're going to have problems. But if you get them right, the opportunities are endless. So we've defined all of those guidelines and those key criteria. And then we've just been taking on all of the tools. So we're not afraid of trying new tools. We're not afraid of using the state-of-the-art, the latest and the greatest. And the whole point is then how do we train people and equip them with those tools and the techniques and the guardrails, and then create a culture where they're allowed to try things, they're allowed to break things, they're allowed to innovate the way the private sector would innovate. And guess what? As long as 1 or 2 out of the 10 things you try turn into a home run, we're all winners. So I think by doing that and then celebrating the wins of people like Harish in that first story, and then the people from the infrastructure project I talk about. Like, I write about these stories on my Substack column, and I brag about these people by name, and they're all shocked. Oh, the minister knows my name. The minister knows what I did. Well, yeah, you did something exceptional, and guess what? The Premier subscribes to my Substack on her personal email, so she also knows about what you're doing. And every time she sees these articles, she texts me in the morning and says, "This is awesome. More of this, please. More of this, please." And now she knows their name. So now that word is getting out across the organization to say the minister and the Premier are paying attention, and if we take initiative and use these tools that we've been given and use the training we've been given and find new and innovative ways to apply AI inside our organization, we're going to get noticed. We're going to be appreciated and respected, and our upward mobility within this organization is going to accelerate. And I can tell you this. Janek was just telling me some stats from the academy about what some of the folks in our latest cohort for the level 3 training are up to, and I won't steal a thunder, but I can tell you the folks in that training they are the happiest they've ever been in their career. And some of these guys have been in the public service for 20 years. So I know one of the previous speakers was talking about that, the happiness index, and and these are important things to track. But I can tell you, if you do it the right way, AI is going to empower your employees to be happier in their jobs than they've ever been, because they're going to be more productive. They're going to be able to delegate the mundane and focus on the strategic and the interesting. They're going to be able to say, what are the things that I am really uniquely qualified to do, and I can do more of that. And what are the things that I hate to do? I don't need to do that. I can delegate that. We have some folks who are now doing the work of 40 people. And they're not working harder. They're not working more hours. but they are able to deliver the work at a higher quality than ever before that it used to take 40 people to do. And they are so excited by being able to do that. So, I mean, you mentioned it earlier. Yes, I am a tech optimist. I am an AI optimist because I am seeing firsthand inside the public service in the Alberta government what we have been able to accomplish. And we're not cutting jobs. We are equipping our civil servants to do more than ever before without having to work any harder and to become more fulfilled than ever before. And by doing so, we're now able to save taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars without having to take a cuts-based approach to do it.
Yeah, what strikes me is, of course, I mean, governments all, because of the institutions, tend to be risk averse. I mean, that is the way that democratic institutions have been created, and there are many of those guardrails in place. To do what you are talking about doing, of course, takes more sort of risk acceptance. I'm curious, is that something that the government in Alberta has sort of had more of, or is it something that you've had to actually sort of work with your colleagues on to sort of kind of build or work through some of those, the risk aversion that is just resident in all governments?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of two types of risk that I want to touch on. The first is the risk of being seen as having stumbled and tried something that didn't work out. Mm-hmm. And on that front, I think we are absolutely more risk tolerant now. I mean, the culture in Alberta in general is very risk tolerant and willing to try new things. We've got a reputation of building very big things. Mm-hmm. In our oil and gas sector, in our forestry sector, in our agriculture sector, and now in our tech sector. And so we do have that appetite, and now that there's the political cover from me as minister and then also from the premier, folks are realizing it's okay to try new things, and it's okay if not everything pans out. The other kind of risk, though, is what's the risk of building something and then deploying it, and it's not enterprise ready. It's not up to snuff with our cybersecurity standards, our data standards, our privacy standards, et cetera. Well, that risk is much greater, right? You could have a massive critical vulnerability, a data breach. You could have all kinds of problems that could cause reputational damage to the crown and cost millions, if not tens of millions of dollars. I would say we're not more risk tolerant on that, but the good news is that the AI tools that we have available to us help us to have a better assessment than we've ever had before of our technology estate, of all of the applications that we're responsible for, and understanding truly what are those vulnerabilities. And to have a better understanding of any new technology that we are building before we deploy it to say, is this ready for prime time? Janik will probably talk a bit more about some of the tools that and the applications that have been built by the latest cohort from our AI Academy. But we had several folks who built enterprise-ready applications in 2 days, and we had completely pen tested them and guaranteed that there were zero vulnerabilities before we even deployed it. So, are we more risk tolerant? We're more willing to try new things, and if they don't work, then we don't publish them, we don't deploy them. And that's fine. If you spend $100,000 trying something and then it goes nowhere, that's better than spending $10 or $20 or $30 million and then saying, well, now we're pot committed, we got to keep investing in that. But when it comes to the risk of deploying something that isn't ready, well, I would just turn that around and say that the AI tools today allow us to better assess our technology estate than we ever could have before, and we're using those tools to make sure that we are updating the technology estate, that like our legacy systems, faster, and making sure that anything new that gets published and deployed is absolutely ready for prime time.
Do you think it's those tools? I'm curious because we've also heard a little bit, and there's been lots of conversation about people building pilots and POCs, and them then not being used or deployed or what have you. Is it the because you've got some of these tools that allows you to get past that POC sort of proof of concept stage, or is it more so the mindset and the culture that you feel like you've sponsored?
Well, I think I think we're fortunate that we've developed a team. We've developed a training program, which is available for free to anyone, by the way. AlbertaAIacademy.com. All of you can use it for free. We built it for our people, but we know anyone else could use it and benefit from it. So we invest in all of that. We invest in the training. We get people up to speed. So we know how to build things. We know how to get things done. And then in the rest of the equation is making sure that we're working with our partner ministries to say, what are the problems that are most important to you today that you want to solve today? What are the biggest obstacles that you've, looking at it the old way, you've been unable to address? How can we use technology to help you? So we have a willing partner on the user, on the client side. We've got a competent and growing cohort of really competent in-house folks who are able to build things faster and to a higher quality and to a higher standard than ever before. And now instead of it being like, well, let's test something and we'll see how it goes for 6 months, we can find out in 2 days. Yeah. And then you can build something and maybe it's 80% of the way there. Well, let's publish that. And then what's the rest of the 20% look like? Well, now instead of that taking another 6 months or a year or 2 years, you can add features every day and test them and make sure every feature you add is ready for prime time. Yeah. So these are the things that get us really excited. And with the minute or two we have left, the last thing I really want to highlight is, all of you I think could probably relate to that comment about legacy technology debt. I can tell you, thanks to the tools in the AI systems and the agentic frameworks that our team has built, we finally now have a proper visibility on our actual technology estate, over 1,400 different independent applications. The old way, the old pace, the old approach to remedying that technology legacy debt was going to take us 130 years. I'm not kidding. Like we actually mapped it out, and we scanned every line of code, hundreds of millions of lines of code. But now we are on path where we will get that resolved 100% within 5 years for an 80% reduction in the total cost. We are going to save billions of dollars for Alberta taxpayers because of the ways in which we are using AI. It's not because of AI, it's because of how we're using it. And that's a big key distinction. There's been a lot of talk about, AI can lead to brain rot, it can lead to all kinds of challenges. You're not using your brain, you're not using your muscles, you're not staying sharp. That can be true with any tool and any technology, right? Watch too much TV, your brain's going to rot. Use too much social media, your brain's going to rot. It doesn't mean TV and social media were bad. It didn't mean they couldn't be used for productive purposes. It meant that if you abuse them, they can cause problems. Same thing with AI. But if you use it responsibly with the right guardrails, the right training, and the right techniques, what you can accomplish is out of this world. Something that we have never seen in all of humanity. And we are only just scratching the surface of the possibilities and the power of what we can accomplish. So we're trying to lead by example, lead by doing, because governments are not historically seen as innovators, and that's fair. But think about it this way: if we, the government of Alberta, can do what I've just shared with you, and we've done it in such a short period of time, anybody in this room can do it, and we can show you how. And we'd love to share with you our successes, whether it be through bilateral discussions afterwards, whether it be through the AI Academy, which you can all log into and use for free. And if any of what I've shared with you today gets you excited, join me on LinkedIn, join me on my Substack. It's just nateglubish.substack.com. I write about this all the time, about AI adoption in the public service and publishing case studies. And we'd love for you to join the conversation.
We could go for another hour and a half, I'm sure. The red light is flashing. I think it's a perfect place to leave it off. Mr. Glubish, thank you so much for joining us here in Halifax and for the inspiring words tonight.
Thanks for having me, everybody. Have a great rest of your conference.